Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be talking about the Vestron Video Collector Series Blu-ray of Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, 4, and 5. Now, I'm actually a big fan of the Vestron Video Collector Series of Blu-rays. I've got a whole bunch of them right back there. I love the slipcovers and how they've numbered the spines. That really gets a collector going, right? It really incentivizes you to collect a lot. I love how they all look in a line together. But I'm also a big fan of the movie selection. They put out a lot of weird and interesting stuff, primarily almost exclusively from the 80s and 90s. Just a lot of movies that you probably haven't thought about in a long time or have just never heard of. And in the case of these movies, these are movies that I have heard of. And it's very cool that they put out a box set like this, but still looks very uniform with the rest of the Blu-rays. It's not the first one they made like that. The Wishmaster collection and the Warlock collection are both like that. Even the Waxwork Blu-ray comes with the first two movies. But this was incredibly reasonably priced. Vestron has been selling their Blu-rays for amazing prices, and frankly, I don't know how they're doing it because they're not sacrificing any quality. They still give you a very high quality slipcover, tons of bonus features, original artwork. They even give you a digital copy of the movies, which the vast majority of Blu-ray boutique labels don't do. So they're giving you a really high value for a pretty low dollar amount. And I'm a huge fan of that. It makes it very easy to explore movies that you've never heard of and just check them out without too high of an investment. And it really makes it easy to collect them all. So the Silent Night, Deadly Night series is actually a series I've been aware of for a long time, but it just never checked out until actually this holiday season. So I just watched the first Silent Night, Deadly Night that was released by Scream Factory, and actually have a video on that on the channel, which if you just click onto the channel, you'll see that, or there's a link down in the description below. And then there was Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, which I also watched, did not make a video on. And some people say that movie is so bad it's good. It actually has a reputation of being like one of the so bad it's good movies. And I agree with the first part, but honestly, I totally understand what people get out of it. For me, it was just a little bit too incompetent to really enjoy, particularly the fact that it spends the first 40 minutes recapping the first movie that, in the case of my experience, I had just watched, so that really drove down the entertainment value for me. But I was very interested in these three movies. They were all direct-to-video movies that came out back in the late 80s, early 90s. And it seems that what this franchise is what the original intention for the Halloween franchise was, right? They made Halloween 1 and 2. Those movies went together, just as Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2 very much go together. And then they made Halloween 3, and it was an anthology story, and they wanted to take that series in the direction of doing a lot of stories that take place around Halloween, but are anthology related, are not really related to each other. And they ended up failing at that because Halloween 3 was so not successful, but they succeeded with that with the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise, because 3, 4, and 5, they have loose connections, but they're very different stories about very different characters. So first up, let's talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out. Now, this movie is connected to the second movie in that Ricky Caldwell, who was the garbage day guy from the first movie, is back in this film. He's in a coma. And basically the story is that there is this research team who is trying to figure out if people with psychic abilities can be connected to people in a coma and turn the switch on in their brains and get them out of a coma. If you believe in that kind of thing, I think it's actually not a super crazy idea. So it was a plot that I could buy into. Our main character is a blind girl who does have psychic abilities, and she's part of this study. And what do you know? She flips on Ricky Caldwell's switch, and he comes out of the coma and starts killing people again. Story-wise, this is kind of a typical slasher movie in that he wakes up and goes and starts killing people, but tonally, it's extremely different. Something that is so fascinating about this movie is it was directed by Monte Hellman. If you're not familiar with Monte Hellman, you're not alone. I've actually not seen any of his movies, but I'm very familiar with him. He's a very respected cult film director. He directed movies like Two Lane Blacktop, which I actually have the Criterion Blu-ray of and I need to check out, as well as The Shooting. He's made some very respected films, and for him to make a direct-to-video Silent Night, Deadly Night sequel is very unusual. And he gives this, it seems like he's trying to give this movie some kind of class. It's actually a very slow burn movie. And I've read a lot of Letterboxd reviews that call it boring, and I can certainly understand that, but for whatever reason, I totally got on this movie's wavelength. For one thing, it definitely has the best cast of any of these movies up to this point. It's weird how Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2 just feel like the trashiest of trashy slashers. The first one in a good way, I really like that, but Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, 4, and 5 all feel a little bit more like real movies. They've got better directors. They've got better cast. In fact, Laura Herring from Mulholland Drive, she was the co-star with Naomi Watts in that David Lynch movie. She's actually in this film. It's just this creepy, slow burn Christmas slasher movie. I actually really liked it. Bill Moseley plays Ricky Caldwell in this one, so he's recasted from Eric Freeman in the second one. And the movie doesn't use Bill Moseley's strengths. I will say that. If you've seen him in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, where he gives this wild and crazy performance as Chop Top, he doesn't use that here because Ricky Caldwell is just coming out of a coma and he's giving a very Frankenstein-like performance, very slow, very monotone. Not what Bill Moseley is best at, but still nice to see him. And I thought the performance worked in the movie, even if I maybe would have liked to see Bill Moseley go full Bill Moseley. Before I go on to the next two movies, I actually want to show you the actual discs that you're going to get in here. And this was a slight source of disappointment for me, but I totally understand. When I paid $11.99 for this, okay? $11.99. I have no room to complain. But all the disc art is exactly the same. It's that same original disc art that you get on the front cover of the Blu-ray, as well as the slipcover. If I had my way, I would have preferred for the original poster art individually to be on each individual disc. But you know, it was so cheap. I have no room to complain whatsoever. And all the movies are on individual discs, which is really cool, and have individual special features. So you got 3, 4, and 5. Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 has an audio commentary with a film historian. It's got interviews with Bill Moseley, with a creative consultant, with an executive producer. It's got trailers and a still gallery. So got quite a bit of special features there. But without further ado, let's talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, Initiation. Up to this point, maybe the most fun movie in the franchise. We pick up with our main character, whose name is Kim. She's a brand new character. In the opening scene, it's her and her boyfriend having sex. This is also the I would say the trashiest movie. Well, no. The first one's a little bit more trashy, but this one's not far behind. But while they're having sex, she sees on the TV that a woman committed suicide, potentially, jumped off a building, and spontaneously combusted into flames on her way down. Now, Kim is a reporter, but she's not taken seriously at all by the club of men, the boys club that work at the newspaper. And she kind of fights her way into being the one who gets to cover this story because she's so interested in it. So it's an investigative journalism movie, to put a very classy term onto Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, about her trying to find out what's the deal with this spontaneous combustion. Maude Adams, who is in Octopussy and in The Man with the Golden Gun from the James Bond franchise, iconic Bond girl, she's in this movie, and the movie's directed by Brian Yuzna. Brian Yuzna, a legendary horror director of Bride of Reanimator and Society, to name a couple. You know, if you get Brian Yuzna, you're going to get some gross special effects and probably too much sexuality. And that's what you get in this movie, and I certainly respect it. This one is a completely different subgenre than any of them, and it's only barely Christmassy. Still is Christmassy. They're all Christmas movies. But this is a cult movie, which I feel like is obvious by the name Initiation, and a bug movie. It's got a weird amount of gross bug stuff. A lot of fun special effects, a lot of good trashy sleaze. It's a really fun movie. My only criticism is that it peters out a little bit at the end. I thought it didn't hit home at the ending as much as the rest of the movie might promise you that it's going to be, but I enjoyed it. Now, this one has a commentary by director Brian Yuzna. It's got interviews with the screenwriter, with a surrealistic design and effects artist, Screaming Mad George. Screaming Mad George does the effects for this movie, by the way. Let's see, it's got an interview with the executive producer and a trailer and a still gallery. So you're still getting tons of special features with every single one of these movies. But next up, let's talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. Now, I had heard going into this movie that this was the best of the whole franchise. Or if people didn't like 1 or 2 the best, they definitely liked 5 the best. And I gotta say, I think I like 5 the best. It's a little bit hard to describe this movie because the plot is very much a, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens kind of plot. It's very difficult to say, well, the movie's about this, because it's really just a series of events. But ultimately, it follows a little boy who was traumatized by watching his father die in a horrific way in the opening sequence, and so traumatized that he can't speak anymore. And it's him and his single mother. They frequent a toy store, which is ran by Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney, who, by the way, railed against the immorality of the first Silent Night, Deadly Night movie, now co-starring in the final direct-to-video film in the franchise. The movie is basically about this toy store unleashing evil toys onto people to kill them in horrific ways. So it's like Toy Story as a horror film, basically. Except he designs these toys specifically to kill people. What I like about this movie, it is the most explicitly Christmas movie in the franchise, I would say, because it's about a kid, it's about a toy store, it's got so much Christmas stuff in the movie, it's got a visit to Santa Claus, a mall Santa Claus, and it's just got so much good Christmas stuff in there, but it is also probably the sleaziest movie in the franchise. It's incredibly gory. I think that the main problem with the movie is because it has such a plot that's so jumping around, and it keeps who certain characters are a mystery for so long that you don't really know why you're following them or what they're doing or why you should invest in them. That makes the plot a little bit difficult to fully get into. And I do think that if this movie had a more streamlined plot, it would be one of the big Christmas horror classics, like almost a Black Christmas level movie. Well, that's a little bit dramatic. Maybe a Black Xmas level movie from 2006. I think I'll stand by that for sure. All being said, I really enjoyed it. And by the end, I could not believe how crazy it got. Like, I could not believe my eyes. I couldn't believe my ears at the plot developments it was going and how far it goes with it. Because if I just told you what happens in the end of this movie, you would have no idea how weirdly it's executed and how far it goes. So I highly recommend Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. It's got an audio commentary with the director and co-writer Martin Kittrosser. He's the only one of these three directors I'm not familiar with. It's got interviews with Brian Yuzna, interview with one of the actors, interview with Screaming Mad George, who I think also did the effects for this movie. Yeah, I remember him in the credits. And let's see, interview with executive producer, trailer, and still gallery. So that's Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. If I were to rank the franchise, I would go 2 at the bottom because it's just so derivative and it's a little too incompetent for me to totally enjoy. Then I would go 3, although I really enjoy it. And then I think I'm going to go 4, then 1, because it's just such a fun, trashy slasher that really delivers. And I'd go 5 at the top. So that's my thoughts on the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise, and specifically on the Vestron Video Blu-ray Collector's series of 3, 4, and 5. So what do you think? Did you pick up this set? What did you think about it? What do you think of these movies? What's your favorite Silent Night, Deadly Night movie? Or if you haven't seen any, what's your favorite Christmas horror movie? Let me know in the comments. I love responding to comments and interacting with people. So I would love to chat a little bit with you about Christmas horror movies. In the meantime, give us a like and a subscribe. That would certainly help. And I'll see you next time.